Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter how you came here, if you came alone or with others, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love or how you speak or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart, tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. If you come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, then you are indeed welcome here. So welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans. This congregation is in its 192nd, although I think it's 193rd, year of liberal, wait, it's that adding thing, that subtracting thing. It was 1833, you can do the math. But we are a beacon of liberal faith and self-discovery and commitment to serving our community and our world. I'm Beverly Reinhold. My pronouns are she, her, and y'all. And if you are a visitor, we'd like for you to raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you now and after the service. Do we have any visitors this morning? Shy visitors? I knew we had some visitors. Okay, thank you. So, we want to ensure that everyone hears everything that's said. So if you're having difficulty hearing what's being said, please wave or raise your hand or do this, and we'll try to make sure we're speaking into the microphone. The microphones work if you use them. So, and if anyone of any age that needs a fidget or to color or something, we have pew packets in the back of the church. You can pick one up that's age appropriate, or you can pick up one and be 3 or 4 this morning. That's okay too. And if you just would return them when the service is over. Also, after the time for all ages this morning, the children are welcome to follow our teachers into the kids' room, which is set up during Sunday services for guided learning and play about UU values. It is through this door and then to the right. You can follow the person who reads the Time for All Ages story. As a lay-led congregation, we invite a variety of worship leaders and organization leaders to our pulpit to help us and to speak to us, to our broader community, and give, be a part of our larger community. So today, our guest speaker is Justin Wolfe, who is also our live stream person and on the worship team and our treasurer, and in his spare time teaches history at Tulane. With that, I'll ask you to rise in body or spirit and read the chalice lighting with me as Justin lights it. It's number 447 in the gray hymnal, the big, fat, thick one. And you can just read it with me as soon as I get my glasses from over there. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
Rekindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
remain as you are, and we'll stay with the gray hymnal and turn to number 55, Dark of Winter. We're not quite there yet, but we are through with hurricane season.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
Please be seated. And it's time for our time for all ages. No?
You need the microphone.
Oh. Whisper, whisper.
Good morning. I invite all those young and young at heart to please join us up front. And we'll read a story from our book sale yesterday, Blue Boat Home. I think you'll recognize the message, and I think you'll recognize the song that accompanies it. This is by Peter Meyer and illustrated by Sue Todd. Dedicated to our precious planet Earth, all its inhabitants, making our way to the lights of the heaven. Though below me, I feel no motion standing on these mountains and plains. Far away from the rolling ocean, still may dry land, heart can say. I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel. And the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder as I ply the starry sea. Leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls. Making our way by the light of the heavens. In our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The end.
So as I mentioned before, children are welcome to go through this door and go into the kids' room, or they're welcome to stay in here.
I want to offer us a prayer, some thoughts for us to meditate upon in these days. After the prayer, we'll hold a few moments of silence to contemplate, think about the message, think about the prayers of your heart. Take some time to reflect, at the end of which we'll sing our meditation hymn, Voice Still and Small. The prayer may be familiar, and I will be talking about it today. God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other.
If you'll join with me, please, I invite you to join with me as we read our responsive reading again in the gray hymnal, this time number 437. I'll give you a minute to find it. And I'll just let you follow along as I read it. Or, no, I'm sorry. I'll read the normal text and you'll respond because it's a responsive reading with the italics. Let us worship. Let us worship with our eyes and ears and fingertips.
Let us love the world through heart and mind and body.
We feed our eyes upon the mystery and revelation in the faces of our brothers and sisters.
We seek to know the wistfulness of the very young, the very old, the wistfulness of people in all times of life.
We seek to understand the shyness behind arrogance, the fear behind pride, the tenderness behind clumsy strength, the anguish behind cruelty.
All life flows into a great common life. It will only open our eyes to our companions.
Let us worship not in bowing down, not with eyes closed and stopped ears.
Let us worship with the opening of all the windows of our beings, with the full outstretching of our spirits.
Life comes with singing and laughter, with tears and confiding, with a rising wave too great to be held in the mind and heart and body to those who have fallen in love with life.
Let us worship and let us learn to love. Thank you all, and good morning. Every time I think I'm going to stand up here, I keep telling myself, one day, I'm going to find that, solidly uplifting, humorous service that's going to lead us out of the chapel singing, and I'll get there. But somehow the world itself keeps crashing in. I think, when we read the news, it keeps crashing upon us. So I'm shooting for uplift, but I'm recognizing the darkness in our days. In less than a year, we've watched the president and the administration sweep away decades of hard-fought battles for civil rights, public health, equal opportunity, and a safer environment. The bulwark of institutional limits, the checks and balances we learned about in Schoolhouse Rock, have collapsed. Gerrymandering has turned Congress into a tool of do-nothingness, and the Supreme Court seems to seesaw between the cowardly and the lawless. This isn't new, however. New to many Americans, particularly white Americans, yes, but not to those brought here in chains, not to those who lived here first, relentlessly purged from their lands, not to those at the sharp end of the projection of US violence overseas. What is new for some is just history for so many others. The liberal establishment and mainstream media might call this view fatalism. This makes sense if you believe in some unseen magic hand guiding us to an inevitable and better future. The past was drudgery, superstition, disease, and war. The future, powered by technology, science, and opportunity, will erase all of these ills. Alas, the advance of rationality seems mostly to have compressed time, for good and for ill. We can develop a vaccine in record time. but we can also obliterate cities in the blink of an eye. This isn't fatalism, this is a choice. In a recent conversation between Ta-Nehisi Coates and Ezra Klein, Klein pressed him on this. How do we reverse the tide? What political strategy or consensus building would, when waved like a magic wand, change the political landscape and swing the pendulum towards good, towards progress? Why are we losing? He asked Coates. To which Coates responded, we're losing because there are always moments when we lose. Klein responded, that feels very fatalistic to me. Coates took a beat and shrugged, responding, it doesn't feel fatalistic to me. It feels like the truth. If it wasn't already clear, as many others critics have pointed out, Coates and Klein were mostly talking past each other. Klein could not step outside his cocoon of liberal certainty that the right tweaks would set the world back on the path of progress, as if we had just gotten off course. But there is no path. This is what Klein doesn't seem to understand. Coates tried to explain, I am descended from people who in their lifetime fought with all their might for the destruction of chattel slavery in this country. And they never saw it. They never saw it. In my personal belief system, he finishes, they died in defeat, in darkness. Now, if that was it, if that was the end of Coates's thinking, maybe Klein would be right. Maybe this is just fatalism, but this is not where Coates ends. Rather, he adds, but I am part of something larger, and I've always felt myself part of something larger. I have a tradition, I have ancestry, I have heritage, and what that means is that I do whatever I do within the time that I have in my life, whatever time I'm gifted with, and much of what I do is built on other people, what other people did before them. In my family, I have ancestry too, a heritage. It is a story of millennia of expulsion and slaughter of Jews, of the Holocaust, of people who still joke about ovens, jokes that are only jokes until they aren't. What my parents taught me, what this history taught me, was an obligation to work towards a better future, not to look for the path, but to lay the stones. As a kid, that seemed so overwhelming, and I suppose sometimes it still does. When I was a teenager, I found a bit of grounding, a bit of help in navigating this uncertainty when my mother taught me what is commonly called the Serenity Prayer. This is what it is called by Alcoholics Anonymous, which made the prayer famous. If you know the prayer, this is probably why. The prayer goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. How many of you know the prayer? It is a powerful charge and one that demands we act, that demands we lay stones on the path to the future. But it's also a method. I have to accept the things I cannot change. I have to change the things I can. And last, I have to discern the difference between those two. There are many things we cannot change. But in AA and similar groups, one of the most elemental of these is the condition that brought folks to AA in the first place. If you are an alcoholic, you are always an alcoholic. This is something immutable, unchangeable, and you must learn to accept this, accept the things that I cannot change. This is not in your power. But you do not have to take the first drink. You do not have to cater to the world of temptation. You do not have to join in to make other people comfortable, to fit in with other people's expectations. Some things you can change, and it is upon you to make those changes. But it's not easy, and it takes time and experience to develop the wisdom to know those things within your control and those that are not. The words of this prayer come back to me often as I think about changing the things that I can. But a few months ago, I was struck. I don't know why. Things happen. Strange synapses in my brain bouncing around. Just ask my students. I was struck with this question. Why is it called the Serenity Prayer? If anything, I thought, shouldn't it be called the Courage Prayer? I mean, I understand the call to acceptance, but calling it the Serenity Prayer suggests that acceptance is really the hard part. And perhaps in the world of AA, that's true. So what about courage? Where is that from? The answer, it turns out, is that the prayer, so what about that courage, right? That other element of this prayer. Where does that come from? So I did some digging. I'm a historian, I'm a scholar. It's kind of, again, what happens in my head. So the answer turns out that the prayer was written at a different time, before it became used by Alcoholics Anonymous. A time that looks a lot more like our own, a world beset by anti-immigrant fervor and fascism. And it was written in response to this. It was a call, not to us as individuals, but to us as a society. So it might not be a surprise then to learn that the words of the original prayer are different from the ones we commonly know today. The prayer was authored by a German-American theologian named Reinhold Niebuhr. He had grown up in an insular Protestantism that emphasized individualism and propriety and devotion to one's own well-being. This was construed as apolitical, right? Religion is supposed to be apolitical, outside the systems that maintained wealth, status, power. For Niebuhr, this wasn't just hypocrisy, however. It was teaching that was easily corrupted by fear and hate into violence. And for him, for the world that his parents came from, that violence became Nazi Germany. And so he spoke out and organized and acted. And he wrote a prayer to be said, to be shared, to be repeated. Here's the original. God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. The differences are subtle, but important. Niebuhr's prayer begins, God, give us grace to accept with serenity. The AA version says, God, grant me the serenity. Where the AA version asks favor from God for the grant of serenity, Niebuhr asks only for grace, for the self-consciousness to act, not to be given, but to choose. The AA prayer is also a personal petition. Grant me. Niebuhr understood that acceptance, change, wisdom had to be enacted collectively. Niebuhr would no doubt have agreed with Søren Kierkegaard, the 19th century Danish theologian, when he wrote, "The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays." 2 decades later, the ideals in Niebuhr's prayer found expression in the radical new Catholic teaching that came to be called liberation theology. This teaching argued that all people deserve a life of dignity on earth, not just in some hereafter, as had for so long been taught. The world was as it was. The world was filled with evil, but the righteous would receive their reward. That was what they had been taught. But liberation theology was not just an interpretation, it was a call to change, not just a claim for dignity, but a demand for dignity. It had a method. A Belgian cardinal named Joseph Cardin gave it a name. See, See, judge, act. It's a nice, simple 3 words. See, judge, act. Assess the world around you. Take it in, evaluate it. Understand that it is not just as it is. It is a world that is made. Do not just accept it. How does it function? And why? To what end? For whose benefit? Now, having seen it, it was time to judge. Did it harm or did it help? Was it fair or not? Did it provide dignity? But even then, judging was not enough. Now it was time to act, to change things. See, judge, act. But like Niebuhr's original prayer, liberation theology is a call to collective action. Seeing, judging, and action must be done in community. That is where its power lies. That is where fear can be confronted. In Latin America, where liberation theology took greatest hold, communities faced unspeakable violence. What did they ask for? What was the sin that they offered? Dignity. For the rights to health, education, housing, fair treatment, a future for themselves and their children. And for this, they received bayonets and torture and disappearance. But even in these darkest times, community sustained them. Not me, but we. As ice bears down on our community, as Gaza continues to face genocide, even with a so-called ceasefire, as poverty continues to rot away at our social fabric, we are called to act. But if you're like me, you're probably surrounded by institutions and people who tell you not to rock the boat, who say that we just have to endure and get through it until the next election, until the Supreme Court is finally changed, until we can show that the institutions that we live in and believe in are actually true and doing the good work. We should just wait. I teach at a local university, a university that over decades, like many universities across this country, have changed, have opened, become more inclusive, have become better places. Institutions like those where I work and elsewhere in the South that were segregated and no longer are, at least in legal terms. Institutions that didn't used to admit women, but do. Institutions that used to have quotas on women and Jews and Asians and others who they might admit when they just started, and who have opened up from those. These institutions changed, but they too are finding themselves swept back decades by the changes that are happening in Washington. And a person at this institution, and I am reminded frequently to say that although I am an employee of my institution, I am not a representative or voice of that institution. So I'll make that caveat. But when asked about stepping forward, doing the right thing, standing up for what is right, not even civil disobedience, not resisting or breaking the law, simply standing up and say, this is what we believe. This dignity is what we believe, seems incapable of doing it. And asked about this, the official said, well, we're thinking about this institution not now, this year, next year, but the next 300 years. That somehow standing up for dignity today imperils that institution, but that somehow not standing up for that dignity will keep it in its, what? Loss of its soul? We are surrounded by institutions and people that tell us to wait, that things will get better. And I want to say that we need to stand up. We need to speak. We need to do. And sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it feels dangerous. And if you do it alone, it may well be. It might be if you do it together as well. But together, we can stand. Together, we can make change. I wanted to I'm going to read briefly a few paragraphs from a really beautiful book. It's terrible and wonderful all at the same time, right? I suppose that's a lot like life. If you haven't read it, I really strongly recommend it. It's by Omar El-Akkad, and it's called One Day, Everyone Will Always Have Been Against This. Right? We don't want to wait till one day. The book is filled with his observations of tragedy, his observations of the ways in which Gazans, the ways in which Palestinians can never seem to be enough, can never seem to be worthy of dignity enough. And yet he believes in change. He believes in possibility. He believes in the work, believes, like Coates, that he's called to follow in the footsteps of his forebears. And so he says, despite that, despite this long ledger of death and pain, active resistance, showing up to protests and speaking out, and working to make change, even at the smallest levels, the school boards, the town councils, matters. Negative resistance, refusing to participate when the act of participation falls below one's moral threshold, matters. And yet there are days when both negative and active resistance feels pointless. A political system that won't restrict firearms after a shooter massacres a classroom full of children. A system that shrugs when a regime murders and dismembers a journalist because that regime controls an inordinate amount of oil. A system that won't flinch at the image of starving babies when it has the power to save those lives. What manner of resistance can't such a system learn to abide? What use is any of it? What use? But there is a use, always. The first is outward. Every derailment of normalcy matters when what's becoming normal is a genocide. It doesn't take much, by the standards of Western normalcy, where the possibility of a missile landing on one's house or a military sniper murdering one's children is so implausible as to be indistinguishable from science fiction. Even minimal inconvenience is tantamount to apocalypse. The second is inward. Every small act of resistance trains the muscle used to do it. In much the same way that turning one's eye from the horrors strengthens that particular muscle. readies it to ignore even greater horror to come. One builds that muscle by walking away from the most minor things, trivial consumables, the cultural work of monsters, the myriad material fruits grown from stolen lands, and realizes in the doing that in doing these things, that there is a wide spectrum of negative resistance. Maybe it's not all that much trouble to avoid ordering coffee or downloading apps or buying chocolate-flavored hummus from companies that abide slaughter. It is this realization that renders negative resistance most terrifying to political and economic power. The simple fact that having taken these small steps, a person might decide it is no great sacrifice and might be willing to sacrifice more, demand more. That having called for justice in one instance, one might do it again and again, might call for a just world. It is probably the case that most mainstream Western politicians don't actually care one iota about Israelis or Palestinians, and were the calculus of electoral self-interest to shift, would happily back whatever position serves their own interests best. But what about a population whose inability to countenance genocide spreads outward, becomes an inability to countenance what the same political systems do and will always allow to happen to so much of the planet? In the name of endless extraction, endless more. Such a thing, such negative resistance, such standing up for justice puts the entire order at risk. As a religious community, Unitarian Universalists affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each person. Amongst our principles, these are the words that so often latch on to the imagination of newcomers. No one is the other in this framing. But I think this sometimes blurs, the words blur together, and I want to tease out one of these words from the others. A word I've said before, a word that's right there in our principles: dignity. What does it mean to affirm each person's dignity? Inherent worth, to me, that suggests a recognition that each person has a worth, one defined by themselves, not by us. We do not give others inherent worth, rather we recognize it. You are a person like me, even in our difference, and in that way we are due the same rights and freedoms. It's easy to read this in the form of a kind of natural rights liberalism. So long as I don't impinge upon your rights, then I can do as I please, the same as you, right? One of the things that I think brings many people to Unitarian Universalism is the way in which belief, right, religious belief, the way in which we find that truth is open to all of us. But I want to argue that dignity is something else. Dignity means giving, right? It is giving that respect. It is not recognizing that others have it. It is giving. It is an act. Many people say that a lot of the principles in UUs are kind of easy. They're affirmations of things that we believe, and that's true, right? We believe in a fair world. We believe in equity. But there is act. There is an act that has to be done. And it is the magic, it is the great thing that religious community brings together and calls us to do, right? We want to recognize each other's inherent worth. We want to welcome everybody in. But that call to being in is also a call outward, a call to dignity, a call to raising the dignity of those around us in community. A call not just for me, but for we. So may it be. Thank you.
Generosity is one of our UU shared values. As UUs, we agree to cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We understand that generosity is a spiritual discipline that connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. We can practice our act of generosity either by placing an offering in the collection plate or by using the information on the back of the order of worship. There's a QR code that can take you to there.
I want to give you the lyrics to the song I'm going to play. If you don't know it, it's called Rise Up by Andra Day. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter. So I see it in you, so we're going to walk it out and move mountains. And we're going to walk it out, move mountains. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting too hard to breathe, and you know you feel like dying, I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. I'll rise up like the day. I'll rise up unafraid, and I'll do it again 1,000 times again.
Gifts to the community, to this community of faith, are gratefully received. Let us acknowledge these gifts by reading together the words in your order of service. This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. Thank you. Giving in the offering plate and pledging are part of how we steward this congregation, how we meet its goals and missions and vision and serve. There are countless other ways to serve, build community, and share with the rest of the city, so I'm going to tell you about a few of them. For one thing, when you get your coffee after the service, you can go through there all the way down to the end of the hall and take a left and go up into the Methodist Fellowship Hall, where we have a book sale today, and you may want to go do a little book shopping. So they'll be there till about 1 or 2. Also, I want you to know that we still have visioning groups happening, and there's one on Zoom this evening. You can talk to me if you'd like to attend that. There are 2 that are next Saturday, in-person ones. One is at Kevin's house in the Irish Channel, and the other one, I'm not sure. It's Linda, Ren is hosting, and Jody, and it's somewhere in Jefferson, I guess. Oh, you're going to be in the Epiphany house. Okay, great. So the sign-up sheet is back there. So then the other thing I wanted to tell you about, I'm in an online poetry group that meets weekly, and the rest of them are in Vermont, and I'm in Louisiana, and they think that I'm some sort of exotic, Southerner. They're amazed when I tell them that our highest point is 509 feet, and you have to go 300 miles to get to that. So, and they always start by asking me about the weather every week, so I can say it's still 80 degrees, whatever. And so last week when we met, I thought I'm going to get ahead of them, and I said, for all those of you who ask about the weather, we have a real ice storm coming. It's that same ice storm that hit Portland and Chicago and Memphis and the Carolinas. They're poets. They're supposed to understand plays on words, right? So there were kind of a buzz, and I realized they weren't quite there, and then one woman said, do you have heat in your house? And I said, not that icy. Ice, the ill-trained bullies that are unconstitutionally grabbing people up. That's the storm that's coming to New Orleans. I think you all know that. And I say this as a lighthearted way to say there are trainings out there. The 2 organizations that are doing the best are Indivisible. Raise your hand if you're a part of Indivisible, in case anybody wants. Yeah, we have 2 or 3 people, 3 or 4 people, in case anybody wants to get information about that. And Union Migrante, they're all doing trainings. There we go. We have a Union Migrante, and they're doing trainings about how we can, as Justin mentioned, we can put our bodies between them and vulnerable populations. So be on the lookout for that. Also, our social justice team is going to be giving us more information. In the meantime, this Thursday at 6 o'clock, down the street at 7100 St. Charles, at the St. Charles Baptist Center, the Louisiana Interchurch Conference is hosting an interfaith prayer vigil because they want to make sure that people see that clerical leaders, that pastors and priests and other faith leaders are taking this seriously and are involved. And the best part is that our very own Melissa Gamble, who is a chaplain and who we are sponsoring through UU for ordination, Melissa will be one of the speakers at that vigil. So I hope that more of us can be out there to support Melissa and the interfaith community and our community as a whole. And there's other announcements if you look at the QR code on the back of our order of worship. Yes.
Would it be okay if I said that
I cannot hear you.
from a friend, there's a protest tomorrow night at Lafayette Park, downtown. It's called ICE Border Patrol Out of New Orleans. On the first day of the operation, we say no.
Okay, since you don't have a microphone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say there is a protest tomorrow downtown, and you can talk to Stephanie during coffee hour to get more of the details. Okay? With that, I will ask you to please, I'll invite you to please rise in body or spirit and join in our chalice extinguishing, which you will also find in your order of worship. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our closing hymn, As You Remain As You Are, is still in the grave hymnal number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
We are gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives.
Thank you. Well, friends, before we head out to that big blue boat that is our world, before we head out there, I want to leave you with some final words. Maybe this is a little bit more of the uplift. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of our existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Please greet your friends and neighbors, and join us for coffee. Thank you, friends.
And then the Christmas tree sale starts at 12 o'clock.